great strategy is to engage students by having them draw on their own personal experiences and having them predict the findings of a research study. After you've had a chance to review the research with the students, then you can really zoom in on the application of those research findings. Help students practice research-based study strategies by finding ways to apply this research to their daily lives. So now we're going to talk about study strategies and really look at what works the best. I'm sure this really matters to you as students, right? Because you want to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck when you're studying. So let's take a look at the Dickinson and O'Connell article. This is one of my favorites. It's an oldie but a goodie because it's a very powerful research study. And here's what they were looking at. They wanted to know what matters more, either how long you study or how you study. So is it the length of study time or is it the study techniques that you use that matter the most? So what I'm going to ask you to do is spend a few minutes in your groups talking about your ideas about this, and then you'll report out in a moment to the large group about your thoughts. So you're really basically predicting what you think the results are going to be, and you can speak really generally about what works for you. So go ahead.
Like if I could study all day, it won't be without their how you do
Okay, let's come back together as a large group now. I know you're still carrying on your conversations. And let's hear from a few of you. So what do you think? Does how or how much matter more, and why? Deanna?
We feel that the technique has more effectiveness than how long you study.
Okay.
I mean, although if you don't use your time like properly, then it does affect it, but it's more so how you study rather than how long you study.
All right. So we have one vote over here for how you study matters more. What about others? What are you thinking? Taylor?
I agree. Because if you start to cram or you start to study for long amounts of time, you only remember partially the beginning of it or the last main details that you studied. So it's better to space out studying.
Okay, so we're even adding another dimension in, not just, but maybe when you study, and so the kind of, maybe the how in terms of are you doing a little bit at a time, or are you cramming it all in the night before, which we all know that doesn't work that well, so hopefully we're not practicing that technique. Others, what does someone else think about it? Let's hear from one more group. Vanessa?
I found that if I go home after a lecture and I go over my notes and I organize them and make sure, sometimes I'll look through stuff and I've written something down wrong, or I'll remember what she had said and I'll write it in during the lecture, and then instead of waiting for the last minute to study all of that or look at all of that when it's not fresh. So I think that helps a lot more.
Okay, so you're actually targeting some specific strategies like reviewing and the timing of that reviewing. So this is great. Let's take a look and see what the research found to see if it supports what you were thinking. Well, here's what Dickinson and O'Connell did. They had 113 undergraduate students, and what they had them do is they had them record their study time as they studied. So this was an improvement on past research, because in the past, the researchers who looked at this issue asked students on the day of the final, how much did you study and how? And we all know from what we learned in memory that our memory is not good, right? We're going to forget quite a bit. So the data that we got from students in those studies is not as reliable as it could be. So what Dickinson and O'Connell did is they had students actually log it as they studied, and they looked at specific strategies including reading, reviewing, and organizing. And what they did was they defined that, because what reviewing means to you, Brittany, is going to be different than what it means to you, Kristen. So they made sure that everyone had the same definition and understanding of what these terms meant. And then at the end of the term, they looked at, of course, what we always do in college, grades on a test, right? That's what they did for the outcome variable. And here are the results. Those who studied more, it was powerful, but the most powerful finding was those who used organizing. So organizing really was the key. Now, what we need to do is we need to take a look at what did they mean by organizing. So let's look at their definition of organizing. They defined organizing as not having color-coded notebooks and making sure you had all your materials and your pencils lined up, but they looked at it in terms of a mental concept of organizing. So here they're talking about taking concepts and putting it into your own words. They're also talking about creating links between this information and other information that you know, either in the past or in your current chapter that you're looking at, or personally meaningful examples, because the examples really help the concepts come alive and make it much more likely that you're going to remember it. So that's what they were talking about in terms of organizing. Now let's take a look at the actual numbers in this research study. If we look at the data here, you'll see what they did is they broke out and they compared the high-performing students to the low-performing students. And what they wanted to know was where were the differences. And there were differences in two areas. The amount of time that they studied. So, A students were studying more than the other students. And you can tell that here, the high performers studied about 190 minutes per week, and the low performers about 136 minutes. So we have about an hour more, right, that the high performers are putting in. So that's pretty important and powerful. So sometimes the low performers just aren't putting the time in. For the other finding, organizing, this was another significant difference. So the high performers were spending about 30 minutes more organizing as compared to the low performers. But now that's interesting and wonderful, because you can then take this information and get the most bang for your buck when you're studying, right? By adding this organizing element to your study practices, you can really increase your chance at performing well on exams. But now here's the other interesting thing. Sometimes it's powerful to look at what's not significantly different. Because I don't know about you, but I certainly have talked to lots of students who come up to me and they say, Dr. Harrington, I studied for this exam, I really did, and I didn't perform as well as I wanted to. And, I could say, well, maybe they didn't study, but actually I believe them. I mean, I think they probably did put time in. And what this research study shows us is that many of the low performers did study. They spent almost the same amount of time reading and almost the same amount of time reviewing, which are two very important study strategies, right? They just didn't take it to the next level and use the organizing. So that's where the problem came in. So what I'd like you to do now is I want you to practice this concept of organizing by taking a minute or two now in your groups to put this research study and its findings into your own words. So if you had to tell another student about this, what would you tell them? So take a minute to talk about it in your small group, and then I'll have you report out. Okay, let's come back together as a large group and hear what you came up with. So who would like to share their summary? Candace.
Something that we had said, I don't really know if it's exactly a summary, but when you read the chapter or the section that you're on, when you're taking your notes, you could put your notes in your own words, and that would also help.
That's an excellent strategy, because what a lot of students do when they're taking notes is they often copy down key concepts, definitions, they're kind of, and if you think about it, that's kind of a mindless task, right? It's not really high-level active engagement. So when we're talking about organizing, it's that key part of putting it into your own words that really helps you understand the material in a more deep way that's going to help you in the future with exams and whatnot. Anyone else want to add what they said? Yes, Abby.
Elaboration, like you have to learn the concept of things that you already know. So when you are
You know you're getting me all excited, Abby, right? Because she's using our memory terminology from the other chapter. So excellent idea here. So basically what Abby's talking about is elaboration, which is a memory strategy that allows you to link information to other concepts that we've learned, and so personally meaningful examples. So this would be great advice to give to your fellow students. Taylor.
You can also
Chunking! Oh, you knew you were going to get me excited when I said that. I can see it. You're like, I got to say it. Because chunking is a fabulous memory tool, right? Chunking is organizing, right? These two terms kind of equate to one another. Are you organizing it into meaningful units? Are you finding those connections between the units? That is really very powerful. So it seems like you folks are well on your way to using these fabulous study strategies.